All right, welcome again, everybody, to Hands to Shoulders from repetitive strain to hypermobility. Let's get ahead of the pain. It's a class that I developed um, fairly recently, so I'm glad you're all here to test it out with me. My name is Aera. I'm a massage therapist and a health coach, and I've specialized in upper body pain, including cranial, upper cervical, migraine headaches, carpal tunnel, thoracic outlet syndrome, and then it expanded into all sorts of chronic pain and disability management type stuff. So this class will be pretty focused on techniques, and we will start off by talking about some self-care stuff that we can be doing. Um, but there aren't a lot of self-care toys this time. So if you were in my previous classes, you know that I have a bunch of stuff for the neck and the face, but there's not as many things for the hands and the shoulders. A lot of this will be movement based as well, technique focused, and then just sort of thinking about what to do in certain situations with certain kinds of pain. So that all said, we're going to jump into self-care stuff. And I would like for the class to either in the chat box or verbally tell me what your number one self-care hurdle is for shoulder to hand pain.
I think it's just hard for me to like get on top of it before it gets so flared up. It just hurts to do anything.
Okay, that's fair. A lot of people, their pain will have to spike to a certain amount and limit them before they become aware that something was happening as well. And so the techniques will be really important because those techniques can actually help you in these emergencies. Anyone else have like a specific self-care hurdle or self-care need?
Um, by the time my wrists are hurting, I actually lose function and mobility. By the time I'm aware that there's a need for intervention, I've already lost function and it's like debilitating. And so, and it really is both wrists. So it's not like if one goes out, I can lean on the other. And so when it's both of them, it messes everything up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So maybe some body awareness and also learning how to rely on certain techniques or strategies when that starts to happen. Heather, would you mind describing for me what is preventing you from raising your arm? Is it like raising your arm above your head, or does your shoulder just stop?
Sure, no problem. It often gets to where I can't raise it any higher than shoulder level, or usually actually a little bit below that, straight
You're
forward.
stuck.
Yeah, when I go forward. If I go to the side, it's actually worse. It is
So you're
easier
stuck.
if my elbow is bent than if my arm is straight, but it almost just kind of gets to where, and I don't know if it's stopping because it physically can't go any farther or because the pain is just so bad I can't lift it any farther. It's kind of admittedly hard for me to tell um, which it is, but I almost just like it hits a wall kind of where I just can't go any farther with it.
Okay. Yeah, so a lot of times pain can prevent that, but so can things like neural tension or muscle spasms or for some reason a nervous system. excuse me, for some reason our nervous system is just locked down and is preventing movement. Does anybody ever pinched like a nerve in their neck and you just can barely move because anything that starts to engage up here just causes you to like, it just hurts. You can barely turn your head. Yeah, I got tricks for that. I did that a lot. I have ligament laxity in my neck and I have a vulnerability in my upper cervical. And I've had a terrible upper cervical injury. But I was pinching on the nerve, I was pinching a nerve in my neck well before my upper cervical injury. And I have to tell you that stretching it and massaging it in the traditional way does not work very well. And it's at that point, that's an inflammatory process because something got compressed or was strained with whatever happened while you were unconscious and in dreamland. And your body is really trying to protect itself from some perceived threat to that region, like physical threat to that region. And when we have isolated swelling that presses along nerves or even close to the root of the spinal nerve, it can be very painful and limit movement. The muscles get very irritated and they go into spasm and they might even go into contracture. When we have repetitive strain injuries, like, for example, I had a new patient come in recently and they had injured themselves peeling potatoes under a time limit for Hanukkah. And they had a regular potato peeler and they had the potato, and you could just imagine them just, look at that action. And holding themselves like that for, I think it was a time crunch. They said, I don't exactly remember how much time they had to do it, but it was like not enough time to do this without rushing. And they ended up very painful attachment points, and they had soreness in their traps as a result because of all that quick, fast contraction of the muscles. Working under pressure like that, the body doesn't like that kind of stuff. We're at our phones all the time. The way that we hold these tiny phones is really bad for our wrists. And then when we are typing here, it creates fatigue because our phones nowadays are actually bigger and heavier than, older smartphone devices. They just keep getting bigger and bulkier. And eventually we're going to go back to probably cordless phones from the 80s. But, like this is at strain, and it's not just muscles. My work isn't going to focus entirely on muscles, but we will talk about muscles. It's your nerves. It's your nervous system. It's compression-based injuries as well. So when we are always gripping, pulling, twisting, lifting, we're also compressing our joints, but we're also compressing and overusing nerves. Pain signaling for the nerve bundle that comes out of our neck and goes into our arm is called the brachial plexus. And the brachial plexus is similar to the lumbar plexus in that it is a plexus, not to be redundant, but the similarities between them is they have multiple branches and they come out from multiple vertebrae. And we can have pain from those nerves And we can have isolated weakness, loss of grip strength, etc. at any point along the line if there is a localized entrapment. But we also have these nerves called subcutaneous nerves, skin nerves. And that's where the work of dermal neuromodulating comes in and neural fascial work comes in. And those are the techniques that I'm going to be teaching you today in conjunction with other self-care strategies. We have a lot of muscles in our body, but every single one of these muscles is innervated by a nerve. You can think of it like this. If we think about the neural anatomy, the nerves, in relationship to the muscles, as opposed to thinking about muscles in relationship to joints, we can be more precise in how we approach our self-care. We shouldn't forget about muscles, but we should know that when we actually go and talk to the motherboard, as opposed to polishing the hard casing of the computer, we can achieve better results. A lot of people come to see me with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, of which I also have. And this work consistently, more often than not, everybody's experience is different, obviously, but consistently feel better and have more control over their pain by using these techniques. That said, I wish I had a nerve book available, but they're all at the clinic. I'm gonna have to get a chart, but getting the appropriate charts is hard to find because a lot of the stuff is very generalized. Anyway, so let's talk about skin nerves first a little bit more. So our skin is kind of pliable, right? And you might notice other areas of your body might be, the skin level might be more soft and pliable than other areas. You might notice some areas feel almost rock hard, like there's not much like movement in the skin, versus other areas where there might be more movement. And that's not necessarily a sign of muscle strength. Some people think that, oh yeah, my skin is like hard and it's like, feels very dense, that it's because of muscle strength or that they're not relaxed. And that's not necessarily true. When we actually release these components that feel very dense or tight or tense, we're actually telling the nervous system it's okay to stop being protective. So it is also can be a sign of overuse and localized irritation that hasn't turned into pain yet. Now, is the goal to make your skin like very, very soft and for you to be able to like, sink into muscles or perceived muscle tissue without resistance? No, I mean, everybody's different. But when our hands and our arms are tired, we've been working nonstop on things, or we're starting to enter repetitive strain flare, you might notice that it feels restricted and everything starts to kind of tighten up and close down. I'm going to show you my arms here. Let me get a pen. So when you think about your anatomy, you have these lines, right? You can think of these as lines through here. And this isn't precise, but all of your tendons thread under here, under the retinaculum. There's like a strip of tape. It's called your retinaculum. It holds your tendons in place. But you also have blood vessels right here. And so you think of that line as it goes all the way through, and now it's underneath deeper muscle tissue, goes all the way through, all the way through, all the way through. Then there's an access point. This is where you usually get your blood drawn. But you have nerves in here as well. And they split at this point. Some come through the back up here. And they go up. And then they wind up through here. This is another important place. They wind up going through here into the armpit, the axilla, underneath pec minor, and up through the clavicle into the neck. That's your brachial plexus. There are 5 points of major entrapment that can occur here. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4 major articulations of bone or joints. And that's why when they're also thinking about self-care, we're thinking about what is happening from the distal end, the far away end, to the proximal end. The end that's closer to the head when it comes to this nerve stuff. So the self-care strategies for these types of pains and tensions. Movement is always good, unless your movement is extremely restricted and you're in like god-awful pain, and every time you move your neck, you're screaming. At that point, that's inflammatory control, in my opinion. That's what has worked best for me. So speaking as your peer and not as a medical professional, that has been what has worked for me. There's new studies and evidence coming out all the time, and I was recently challenged on my belief that ice is best because I guess there's a study, I haven't seen it yet, that ice apparently can disrupt the vasodilation process, which is what you want with ice. And I have reasons for that, but I had somebody tell me that they no longer use ice because it just doesn't seem something that they would use for their pain anymore. Okay, fair. My school of thought, until I get more evidence, is that I still like ice. When you are in so much pain that you can't move that limb, ice is something that you could try. You don't have to use actual ice cubes. You could use a more gentle form of it with ice gel packs. They warm up faster. I find that the ice gel packs are more friendly, especially for me because I have Raynaud's. But I'm not putting ice here since for me, I get into a lot of pain when I put cold stuff on my hands. Like if I'm running my hands underwater and it was very cold, the pipes haven't warmed up, that pain shoots up into my neck. That's how sensitive I am. So I personally only use ice for the shoulder region, shoulder neck region where it connects. So specifically, if I wake up one day and I go to turn my head and it's like, and I feel like I got caught by a bear trap or something, I'm going to go. I'm going to grab an ice pack, ice gel pack, and I'm going to put it right on that spot, and I'm going to numb it up. Right. Everybody's different. Maybe you only want it there for 5 minutes. I wouldn't put anything like that for longer than 20 minutes. Once that is calmed down, I'm going to take that ice pack off, and I'm going to begin gentle movement. I'm going to just begin gentle movement. It's going to suck. It's going to be stiff and tight, but by numbing it up, you've reduced the pain so that you can move through it. And then I'm going to go in with some techniques. I'm going to, depending on where it is, and you'll learn these a little later on, I will do 1 to 2 to 3 different things. And then I will alternate with ice later on in the day. I will try to manage the best I can with the techniques, with using ice. I might use ice before I go to bed later that night. And the next day, if it's improving, I might start doing things like heat. It depends on how bad it is. You know, some people, speaking as your peer, not as a medical professional, some people take a muscle relaxant or a ibuprofen for it. I don't do any of those things because I have stomach problems and I'm extremely sensitive to medications. So I rely heavily on movement after numbing it up and then using my fascial offloading or nerve slack techniques. And then I do my best to also do passive or positional releases. So passive and positional releases are what it says. It means that you put yourself into a passive position. So you have to be able to, for example, I'll show you a positional release for the wrist right now. So this is my wrist, and let's say I'm having pain through here. Maybe I'm having a little bit of like nerve zapping from the median nerve. And maybe I just want to, do a positional release for it. I would come in passively and I keep my hand like dead weight. And then I would curl my fingers and I would lift up, not into a stretch, but I would just lift up enough. And I would hold. My nervous system is primed for this work, so I believe that the more that you do it, the more your nervous system relaxes. Again, your mileage may vary, but for me, it happens really fast. Some people have to hold these for 2 minutes or so, but I already had my breath. So with these techniques and stuff, you might notice that you take an involuntary breath of relief, and that is your nervous system saying that it's relaxing. So I'm going to bring my hand down. Notice how I push it down. I don't move it. And I open up my hand. If I didn't have this in the way, I'd open up my hand. I'd wait a few seconds. And then I would move it. Now, sometimes when you do something like that, your body will give a signal somewhere else. And like my signal is through here now. So then you would follow it and do something higher up the chain. Because if you could think of it as like relaxing or unlocking sections of your nervous system or your nerves, that your body might be like, hey, what about the next part? Like I can also feel a little something in my thumb now, and that's indicating to me that I have more work that I need to do in this area. We'll go into that a little bit more. So that's an example of a positional release. And there are positional releases for that terrible neck, pinched neck feeling, which I'll show you on the couch in a little bit. So when we are in that much pain that we can barely move and things are in spasm, ice is beneficial, like maybe an ice gel pack if you want to be more gentle to your system, and then always make sure it's wrapped up in a paper towel or a cloth when you use it. If your doctor's told you not to use any cold numbing products, like no ice, then listen to your doctor. Because everybody's on a spectrum, right? If you have Raynaud's and it's really bad, anything that's cold may not be appropriate for you. That said, if you do have a little bit of hand function and you have a little bit of grip strength, you can use pretty much all of my techniques. They don't require much grip strength at all. They do require you to be able to like reach and scoop and even sometimes make a pinching action. Any techniques that are difficult, I can probably find a modification for you if you have use of your hands. That's kind of the one thing. There are self-care toys for the hands and the wrists. I will show you one of them. I don't really like it too much. The one that I liked is no longer being produced. It was called the Jellyflex Abacus, and it's like gone now. And I'm like so mad that it's gone. I have one, and I use it occasionally, but I prefer my techniques over it. So let me just, I know this is an Amazon link, but it was the quickest one I could find. You can find this elsewhere if you want to buy it elsewhere. I'll drop it into the chat for you. It's called a Rolio arm and hand massager. It's better than nothing. I'm a little shocked that it's this expensive now. But if you want that kind of massage feedback where you feel it on both sides and you're putting your arm through that, and it's like sort of like more deeply touching your muscles, if that's like a sensation that you enjoy, you might like it. The techniques that I use are extremely light and really focused on the nervous system, whereas that gives more of a traditional massage feedback. So that's one of the self-care tools that you could use. If you haven't thought about it or considered it, and if you, and regardless if you have arthritis or not, there's a variety of self-care tools for the hand. There are heated mittens that you can get. There are hand compressors that you can get. I haven't used any of those products, so I can't tell you like how I would like them. And then they have these things, which this is shaped like one of the giant ice gel packs that I have. So you can look for those two in this shape. But the ones that clip on like a cape, those are good for the back of the neck and the shoulders. This is an example of one that you can microwave apparently. And then there's also, I don't think they're unscented. I've had these for a long time. I'm gonna grab it to show you. And I think I think the smell goes away after a while, and I have the website. I'll share it with you too. But this is a Body Sense heated rice bag. I guess it does. I guess I can still smell the herbs. So if you're not that sensitive, they have like herbs in here too. And they have, I think they have like clay beads and rice, and you put them in the microwave for, I put it like on a lower power for like 2 minutes. And then when my shoulder is really messed up and I'm not using ice anymore, I start using heat, I put it on my shoulder. Or I use it for my low back, or I put it on my hip, or you can also use it for your period too, if that's helpful. The other one that I got, this is from Earth Therapeutics. It has a washable cover. This one's not washable, but you can put them in a pillowcase or whatever. But it has a washable cover, and then all it is, oh, I don't even know if I can pull it out. It's a sack. And the sack has more of those rice and clay beads inside. I personally prefer these over the gel that they say that you can microwave or put in the freezer. When I get those types of gel packs, I only use them in the freezer. I don't put them in the microwave. That just kind of freaks me out, so I don't do it. But this has a couple of applications. You would microwave it. It goes around. It can be used for the pec in this regard. It'll be weighted. Some of the beads will fall on the front. And it can help calm down pain at the shoulder joint as well. You can move it over if you want to have it more on the joint. And then it'll be like on the back of your neck. You can even take it, you can hold it like something like this. And you can hold it like this, so it's more on your shoulders. That way you get, it's called moist heat. When you microwave these, they kind of sweat. It makes you sweat. It's moist heat. You can get that onto the back of your scapula over into where all those attachment points are at the shoulder joint. This is also great for your period. You can also do this on your low back if you wanted to. You could even put this over both of your knees. For the people that like heat, I think those are really good tools. But I'm going to find that link for, yes. So it's Body Sense Hot and Cold Aromatherapy Packs. And this is a local Seattle company. So if you want to support a small business, this could be good. They have all sorts of products on here. I've only used their packs and these clay bead rice packs. I have only gotten because my partner had a bunch from another massage therapist he used to date. So I haven't bought any new ones. I'm hoping the quality is still the same. If you manage to get one before I get a new one, please let me know if you find the quality seems good. They're quite durable. The stitching is great on them. And I'm not sponsored. I just like them a lot because I really use them for my pain management. And they've got different ones. They've got like really big ones. So you can have somebody heat one up and put it on your back while you're laying down, or you could lay on it if you want to. They're double-sided. So you can have like a hotter side and then you can have a softer side. I never put this on my bare skin. You could burn yourself doing that. If I'm using this for more intense heat, I have it through clothing or a towel. I have put this side on my skin and that has been okay. So let me think. And there are other things that you can use, but I personally have stopped using them as much just because of my sensitivity. And I also was told by my rheumatologist not to use it anymore. I still might if I'm desperate. But for people with Raynaud's, vibrational or percussion-based massage tools like a Theragun or a Hypervolt, the ones that you charge in the wall and then you press a button and it's just like it's like it's like a jackhammer. If you have Raynaud's or you have leaky blood vessels like I do, so kind of like if you have EDS, it may not be appropriate for long-term use or even at all. You want to talk to your specialist about that. But for people that don't have those problems and you're just dealing with repetitive strain injuries, a Theragun or Hypervolt, one of those jackhammer tools, they can actually be very helpful. I have definitely used them to quickly force my pec to release. I have used them on the tops of my shoulders, and I've even used it on the back of my arms when things are really tight and my muscles were strained and trying to recover. That can be a thing to look into. They can be expensive, and I wouldn't necessarily trust Amazon knockoff brands. I would trust a brand name like Actaway, Hypervolt, or Theragun. I wouldn't get one of those cheaper ones as the motors tend to die out faster, the parts are cheaper, and they break more easily. Okay, so we've covered ice, heat, percussion, massage tools, manual rollator tool. And then for the sake of being thorough, if you don't have sensitivities and you want to try that kind of stuff, you can always get CBD oils and creams. I prefer 1-to-1 THC CBD creams because they work better together. Those are analgesics. Unless you have a known issue, like if you put something like that on your body, it actually will go into your bloodstream. Some people with collagen disorders, we might actually absorb stuff as transdermal when it's not intended to be. The only thing you have to watch out for is some of these products, they actually don't know what their product is doing. You might want to research a company more thoroughly to make sure it's not transdermal if you're not trying to get high on cannabis. But I actually really enjoy Salvation. It's a local product. You can get it at Ounce Recreational. It's a 1-to-1 cream. I even have it in my clinic. And I think it's a great cream. It is scented. It's got eucalyptus and tea tree oil in it. A little bit can go a long way. I use it on my ankle, and I will use it on the back of my hands or at the base of my thumb. When I sprained these two fingers, I used it a lot. Dragon Balm is another one that's popular and it has good reviews as well. You might feel okay experimenting with that, but a little bit goes a long way. Wrapping and bracing your wrists and your hands can also be helpful. So you'll notice I have one of two braces on right now. I have this swan splint, and it's because my thumbs are hypermobile. And after spraining this, I have like a burning pain in this joint. When I started wearing this, I even sleep in this. I no longer have a burning pain, and my strength has come back to the joint. I'm extremely hypermobile here, and I injured it. So when I'm doing activities that require a lot of gripping, uh, strength, I actually use a push brace. And the push brace secures my CMC joint, my carpal metacarpal joint. And now I'm able to do all of the functions for my job. If they didn't have these, like if we lived in like the 1800s and these didn't exist, I would be more disabled than I am now. And after injuring myself and seeing a hand therapist, she warned me that hypermobility at the CMC joint doesn't have a surgery to fix it. So if the tendons fray enough or the ligaments become too lax and you start subluxating a lot, like I could push that joint out. My whole life, I could just push that out. There's no surgery to fix it. Now these push braces, I think I have the box here somewhere. Do I? Did I get rid of the box? Yeah, I must have gotten rid of the box. Darn it. I can find that for you too. So you'll get a list of everything I talked about in an email so you can look at it or look for things similar to it. I usually prefer to just recommend products that I know that I have used that I trust. So you'll get the list of what I like to use, and then you can decide what you like. But the push brace, there's different sizes. There's a way to measure yourself for it. If you're already dealing with weak thumbs and you need a little bit of support, it couldn't hurt to try it. But I think that they are at least $45. You can get cheaper ones too, just like you can get cheaper swan splints. This one's made by a person that makes them off of Etsy. She has a house on Amazon Shop. That's where I first found her. And she makes the swan splints. She also makes I think she makes buddy rings too, and she makes like double swan splints out of silver or stainless steel. So they're more expensive, but then they're durable. You can go online and you can find like the cheap plastic ones if that's something that you want to try to see if it makes a difference for you. So making sure that you have the proper support for your fingers and your joints is really important. I have been considering getting compression sleeves for a long time. They make compression sleeves for your hands, for your arms, and they even have elbow braces that just give you a little bit of support that aren't bulky. I'm finding braces like that before you start having severe joint pain or mobility loss is going to be helpful. Investing in your self-care support routine and your mobility aids now, your braces now will mean a lot less suffering in the future. I don't always wear my braces. Yep. But when I have a flare up, I definitely do. I have an ankle brace too, I wear because I started tearing one of my ligaments. And now I have arthritis in my ankles. So I use that for a little extra support. When you put in a foundation of making sure that you have the proper braces, that you're still prioritizing movement, and that you have a system in place for how you use analgesics. So ice, heat, cannabis cream, icy hot are all analgesics. Although the cannabis cream has anti-inflammatory properties and can even help with some dermatitis stuff. Like if you're itching really badly, I put some on my partner's arm and it went away after 2 hours. Your mileage might vary, but there are multiple applications for some of these. But like BioFreeze, for example, it's got menthol in it, and it might have arnica. So some of them have arnica, some of them don't. But BioFreeze by itself has no anti-inflammatory properties. Icy Hot by itself has no anti-inflammatory properties. They're just analgesics that scramble your pain signals and like makes you feel something else. It masks your pain so that you can go about your day and not be distracted. I don't think that those kinds of things are very useful in the long term just because you're masking it as opposed to addressing the root cause of it. And the root cause for hypermobility based pain can be a number of things that's causing your hypermobility, including mast cell destabilization. So before we take questions for this section and before we take a break, I want to tell you about my pain and how I got it down from a 7 to a 10, or sorry, from a 7 out of 10 to a 2 out of 10. So I started getting like sicker with HEDS, like in mast cell stuff, and I didn't know what it was, but I started getting sicker in 2019. And then I wound up with fatigue and more body pain, more asthma symptoms. I gained a lot of weight. I had red bumps all over my body. My face had more rosacea. My hair was starting to thin and I was starting to lose my hair too. And I knew something was wrong and I suspected an autoimmune disorder. And like, I'm going to guess the majority of people here, I had major problems with getting the doctors to do anything more than basic blood tests. And I ran into problems where I did have doctors who wanted to help me and they were willing to do certain tests, but because of the system that they were working in, they didn't have access to some of these tests. And they didn't know enough about what was going on to be able to like look at other avenues. And so I had to find people talking about this stuff. And now I'm talking about it because looking at the relationship between ADHD, EDS, POTS, and MCAS, histamine intolerance, was a critical turning point for me. So 2 years ago, I got a genetic test done. And it said that I had a lot of problems with oxidation and inflammation. And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. But I hadn't been able to like really digest or look at a lot of that. And I had been working with a dietitian and we had been changing my diet, and my dietitian was the one who said that it seemed like I might have some histamine intolerance issues. And I was like, And I was like, I don't really see evidence of that. And that's because I gaslighted myself about my symptoms and I thought they were related to other things. I wasn't absorbing nutrients correctly. And I found out through my genetic testing that I have an intracellular transport issue of vitamin B12, and I need methylcobalamin in the liposomal form to have vitamin B12 more available in my system. At this point, my brain fog, fatigue, aphasia, and depression was like the worst it had ever been. And I was considering closing my practice. And then I started waking up with pain almost everywhere, especially in my limbs. I would barely do anything the day before, and I would wake up as if I had walked like 500 miles or something. And it was like a 7, 8 out of 10 for part of the day. And then it would drop to maybe about a 5 or 6. And I have a massive pain tolerance because, well, I've been in pain for a long time. And I also busted my neck. And I know firsthand what it's like to pinch, like snare the cervical plexus and have damage to my throat, have swelling difficulties, trigeminal neuralgia, and like really bad gum pain as a result. Migraines, headaches, everything. So I went to my doctor and I said, I think I have a spinal cord impingement, or I think I have tethered cord, or I think I might have Chiari malformation. And I had been checked for Chiari malformation before, and I wasn't really convinced that I had it back then. But then with the pain that was happening in all 4 of my limbs and the weakness, the spasms that I was having contractures that would make me do this. I was starting to lose function of my legs. And I remember dropping to the floor, the hard tile floor, because I could not stand up anymore. And my partner was like, should we take you to the hospital? And I was like, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. So I had x-rays done and they were fine. Around the same period of time, I went to my naturopathic doctor and I had written down everything that had happened to me with food, because I was also thinking, what if the histamine intolerance issue is real? What if I have mast cell activation syndrome? Especially since I had 2 anaphylaxis-like reactions to food in a short period of time. And then I started having adrenaline flushing interactions with food that I had been eating for years that had not had a problem. And so I had entered a phase of mast cell degranulation. So when you piss off mast cells, they degranulate for like 3 months or so. And the mast cells are a type of white blood cell. It's part of your immune system. And when mast cells are angry, they release different components into your body. One of them being histamines, and another one being prostaglandins, and then leukotrienes. And that I can't quite remember what the last one was. So an asthma treatment, they might give somebody a montelukast because of the leukotrienes that mast cells are releasing into the respiratory tract. Prostaglandins cause bone and muscle pain. So my doctor, it took all but like 10 minutes. I brought them a list of everything that like was causing me reactions, and the handful of times I remember having a strange anxiety panic attack after eating food, or my face flushing temporarily, etc. And they said, that sounds like mast cell stuff. Let's get you a prescription for cromolyn sodium. And after basically starting treatment for mast cell activation issues, my pain dropped extremely quickly. So I take oral medication for it. Some people use an inhaler for that kind of stuff, or they have like eye drops or nasal spray for that particular medication. I was taking the oral, and I felt like sections of my body just turn off like that within like an hour of taking it. And I felt different. My strength was coming back. My pain was dropping dramatically. I was waking up with less pain. I was starting to sleep better. My skin started to clear up. This is like the cleanest the backs of my arms have been in years. My face actually started to get better, and I noticed that my joints became more stable. Mast cell dysregulation can destabilize ligaments and joints. So if you've been doing a lot of stuff for your pain already, but you're still in a lot of pain and you haven't gotten the right medications or diagnoses yet, you might consider looking into histamine or mast cell support. There are tests for it, but there can be multiple reasons for it as well. So, for example, I have a genetic problem. I don't produce enough of DAO enzymes. And so I do not break down exogenic food-based histamines in my body. So when I eat a very ripe avocado, and then I have some tomato, and then I have gochujang, and I don't have those enzymes in my system, then I wind up having an anaphylactoid-like reaction. Off brands of food, discount food, all of that can contribute. And it made my hands weak. It made me drop things more. I already kind of drop things and I already kind of like throw stuff in my face because I have cerebral palsy. But it was like so much worse when my mast cells were that activated. And so that is just some food for thought to consider. Now, I will open the floor for some questions and answers about what I've already covered. And then we'll take a break. I'll come back and I'll show you how to manually decrease pain and increase mobility. You can type a question in the chat box or you can just popcorn it out. When is it appropriate to switch from cold to heat therapy? My preference is I like to wait 2 to 3 days after. One sensation or felt sense where it might be appropriate is when the pain starts to decrease, but you start to stiffen up. And, it's more sore than it is, oh shit, So when it's like, oh, when it's like that versus, that's when you can switch to ice or switch to heat, sorry. The switching from ice to heat because the heat will help relax the area and it'll help it'll help relax the area, make you feel more comfortable. And then how is Tiger Balm in regard to being anti-inflammatory? I don't know what's in Tiger Balm. I feel like Tiger Balm is an analgesic. It might have some Chinese herbs in it, so you want to look at what's inside of it. But I never use it because I'm scent sensitive and I don't tolerate the smell of that. So you have to look at that. Yeah, there's a couple of things for that pinched neck that we can do. Any other questions or things that you want me to clarify before we go on a break? Okay, well, let's take a 10-minute break. So we'll be back at 4:50. I'm just gonna hang out here and eat a snack. So if people want to sit and chat with me, they can, but I'm gonna stop recording now. We'll resume recording after the break is over. Okay, so for that neck thing, here's my couch. Okay, so it's like, ow, I can't move. My neck's in so much pain. I can barely move. And every time I try to go to like reach for something, it just hurts. It's like it got like the signal's not quite working and all the muscles are locked up and there's just so much pain. That's where something like this can come in. So I'm talking about positional releases again, and I don't know if the camera's going to show you, but I'm going to turn my body kind of to the side. I'm going to reach. I'm going to lift my arm up so it's dead weight. Now using my arm. So I'm using my spine. I'm going to lower my arm down onto the couch. I'm going to tilt my head to the side. I'm going to wait. I'm going to try to drop my shoulder. And you can see that this kind of like engages my nervous system, so I already kind of twitch when this happens. But I'm not in any pain. It's just kind of what I do. You may or may not do that. So I'm gonna keep my head tilted towards it because what I've done is I've shortened the muscles in my neck and my shoulder passively. I've passively put them into the shortened position. So my brain, my nerves, the electrical wires aren't working for movement. They're not working for movement. And I'm just gonna wait it out. I could be here for a minute, I could be here for 2 minutes. So I already had some tension in the shoulder. I didn't have the problem that we're trying to address by doing this. But if you notice, my shoulder just dropped. I took a big deep breath. So I'm going to bring my head up. Okay. I'm going to reach for my arm. I'm going to pull it towards me. Okay. I'm not moving it yet. Once we do the positional release, you want to give the arm time to register that. We don't want to rush the process here. I'm going to take my arm. I'm going to pull it down. I'm going to wait a second or two. Then I'm going to move it. Okay. I'll come to the edge of my seat after I do that. I'm going to sit up. And I'm going to gently turn my head. I'm not going to go fast. I'm going to gently turn my head. Oh, it still kind of hurts. It's a little bit better. And I'm going to turn my head towards it. Oh, yeah, that's still pretty sore, but I can move it a little bit more. I'm just going to gently feel my range of motion. I'm going to do a couple of chin tucks. Like, okay, that's a little bit better. Then I'm going to take my arm. I'm gonna raise it to the comfortable limit. I'm not gonna push my limit. So say I'm here. Gonna gently move it. Maybe it'll also be helpful if I tilt my head towards it as I'm doing that. So I'm still keeping the nerves and the muscles shortened. And then maybe I could do something a little bit like this. The cool thing about positional releases is that you can do them anytime you want to, for however long you need to. But it's not like medication or anything. You can just do it anytime that you want to or need to have a moment.
Can I ask the question?
Yeah.
So I just tried it while you were doing it, and my arm started to get tingly, so I moved it back down, out of that position. Is that like a, because I know when I've like had like physical therapy and stuff for like nerve glides, they're like if it's tingling, it's too much. Um, so would that be just do the same thing but like at a lower level, or do you have an
Can
idea?
I can I address that when I have the section for questions and answers? I want to
Oh
finish
yeah.
this section. So
Yep.
I didn't say this at the beginning of the class, but when I get interrupted with questions when I'm in flow, it completely breaks my brain and then I lose track of what I was doing. So if you could like write your questions down and wait until the section, like that's my bad. I forgot to put that disclaimer down. But I'm in the middle of basically info dumping all of this, and now I have to kind of like walk myself back what I was doing. I need a second. What was I doing? Right, positional release. So we did a positional release, and that's just one of um just a second. That's just one of several approaches to this. Um, you can try modifications of it, where you can move on to other techniques first and then try it again later. There's really no right or wrong order. The only thing that I would say that's important for order for this particular issue is if you're able to and you can tolerate it, is to ice it, because that helps reduce nerve signaling, it reduces swelling, and it reduces inflammation. So for the actual nerve slacks, we have to look at the neck. And here at the ear, right here is a groove where your nerve fascial complex of the axis. So we're going to take our fingers and we're going to find that split between the muscles. And for this, the pressure is like this. It's light pressure. We're not digging, right? And we want to be able to move the skin. So I'll show you first and then you all can try. So I'm going to find the spot. See how I scooped up? I'm going to scoop up and we're going to hold. I'm going to let my shoulder, I can rest it on the table for this, or I can just let it hang down, but I'm not going to like move my arm or anything. And I'm not going to do it same side because then you're moving your arm. You want to like let this rest. I had my breath, so I'm going to slide out with respect. I'm going to wait a minute, or not a full minute, but I'm just going to wait a couple seconds. And then I'm going to move my shoulder. I already feel my shoulders lighter. Let's try it on the other side. So here's the ear. Find a spot between the muscles here. I'm gonna scoop in and up. I got my breath, so I'm gonna slide out with respect. Gonna pause. I'm gonna move my shoulder. Shoulder feels more relaxed and open now. So this is one spot to get it. It's the most proximal spot. The second spot down the chain is going to be back here. So we're going to reach if we can. This might be difficult for some people, but I'm going to reach here for what is the dorsal scapular nerve. And I'm going to come in. I'm going to pull that up. You see how I give myself a skin lift? I'm going to pull that up. So this is what it looks like. And I'm going to let it rest. Okay, I'm gonna slide back with respect. I'm gonna come out. I'm gonna rest. I'm gonna move my shoulder. Starts loosening up every time. Those 2 points are important for that particular thing because a lot of times is our levator scapula that is causing us to have that pinched nerve sensation. There's a third point that's proximal, close to the nerve roots, that we can also address as well. And it works for the entire arm, and even into the hand. So if you're having tingling problems with positional releases, this one might be the one that you'd want to try first before doing a positional release. So here's my clavicle. Find your clavicle bone, your finger pads, not digging in, just our finger pads. Slip behind it, or sorry, above it, slip above it. There's this triangle here. This is what we're trying to contact. It's spongy. It's like a water balloon type consistency. It's different than if you go over your pec and you're feeling your pec. Your pec tissue will be denser. If you go right underneath the clavicle, it's going to feel different than the stuff up here. If you go too far, you're going to feel the anterior scaling, and that's going to feel similar to this tissue. If you go too far back, then you're going to be on the hood of the trap, the trapezius, and that's going to feel different. You want to be between those right here. So I'm going to come in, and I'm going to scoop up, and I'm going to hold. I voluntarily did that. Your body may or may not do stuff like that. Mine does. I took my breath, so I'm going to come out of it. I'm going to wait a second. Okay, I'm going to move. I feel like movement is a little bit easier for me. My shoulder was a little tired recently, but it feels better now. So we have that point, we have that one, we have this one that we just did. Okay. Now, going into the rest of the brachial plexus, we release all of that. We can decrease our tingling or any potential nerve tethering stuff. When we are doing these things, like some of you came to my face class and we had slacks, right? Well, the same thing applies to the rest of the body when we're doing those, or even when we're doing positional releases, other areas of our body may light up. And to me, that's like the map that I have to follow. That's like the next spot to go to, or the next spot to go to. You don't have to do it that way. You can go in a specific order, but just know that if your body lights up or tingles when you're doing something, it doesn't mean that it's too much. What it could mean is that you are engaging your nerves. And what we're looking for in that is we're looking for it might increase a little bit, but then what should happen is it should plateau out and then it should bottom out. It should drop. What we don't want is for it to climb and climb and climb in sensation, pain or otherwise. We don't want it to keep climbing. We also don't want it to be in an indefinite plateau. Now, if it's climbing and it's continuing to climb, that's a sign that you need to back off, go to a different area, modify the technique, or try it again a little later. When it plateaus, it could mean that it's just not ready or that it needs more time. You can come back to it later. You can do other things for it and then come back to it. When it drops, that typically means that you've released some of it and your body is starting to readjust to that. So when we get into the arm now, that's where some of the stuff might start lighting up in people's fingers and hands. And so keep that in mind as we go through this next section. So armpits are really important places. And you don't have to try this now. You can try it a little later. But armpits are really important. I'm always talking about armpits. I feel like armpits is the key to unlocking a lot of stuff in the shoulder and in the neck. And it makes sense because the main bundle of wires is like right here. Your wires are here, and like there's an entrapment point for the clavicle. There's an entrapment point under the pec. And when we address those 2 points, a lot can be released in the arm. So I'll show you a couple of my armpit moves. My camera will stop zooming on my face. I don't exactly know how to control that. But so we have armpits, right? Here's the pec. This is the space between the triceps and the biceps. This is where blood vessels and nerves are. Goes up through there, crosses through here, and goes up through here. When we have thoracic outlet syndrome or really painful pain coming through the pec, down the arm and it feels like it's coming from something in the armpit, this is what we can do. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to the side. And I'm going to walk up to where I'm against my ribs. I'm against my ribs here. And I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to scoop straight up. I'm going to let my shoulder drop. That's what it looks like. I'm going to let my shoulder drop. And I might sit for this. And so I'm up inside my armpit, right? I'm up inside like this. I've got the skin bundle. That's all that I'm doing. I've got the skin bundle. Sorry about the camera. Okay. So I'm gonna let my shoulder just drop in that position. You see how I have it. I'm not grabbing my pec. I'm literally using my first 2-3 fingers to just scoop up the skin against my ribs. It is a little painful for me because I'm up against serratus anterior, which is the punch your face muscle. And that muscle often gets locked down and overworked when we're at computers or when we're sleeping on our side with our shoulders rolled forward. So this can be a sensitive space, but I'm in here and I'm just waiting for it to release. There's my breath. I'm going to slide out. Want to wait a second. And then I'm going to move my shoulder and my shoulder feels better. I felt some of my tension and pain drop through here and through here. So remember earlier I noticed when I did a positional release that I had a couple sections light up. Doing that made that release a little bit. So for the next armpit one, we are grabbing our pec. So I'm gonna come through here. Here's my pec minor. This is the pec minor muscle. I'm gonna find the edge of the muscle. Yeah, you have to touch your armpit for this. I'm gonna bring my fingers in so you can see how I have grabbed it. I'm gonna grab that sucker. We'll put my arm back down. And I'm going to pull towards my sternum. So I've got it pulled towards my sternum, like that. And I'm just gonna hold it. I feel a little bit of tingling in my first and my thumb. I'm gonna wait before I adjust. I'm gonna see if that's a referral pain from something that I'm contacting or if it doesn't go away. If it doesn't go away, then I'll reset the movement and I'll try it again. And it's going away. So that's a good sign. So it went up a little bit, it plateaued, and then it dropped. So now I'm gonna wait for the second cue from my nervous system, which is my breath. I'm gonna slide out with respect now, taking my hand away. I'm gonna wait a minute or a couple seconds. Okay, great. I feel like I almost have a new shoulder. So we did that point, this point, this point. We did this one and we did this one. Now, next one is cubital fossa. So the inside of the elbow. So for inside of the elbow, I'm gonna lay my arm down. I'm gonna take my fingers. So I'm touching here and here. See the line? Your elbow. I'm just going to intend to gently bring my fingers a little bit together. So like that. That's all I'm doing. I'm not feeling a pulse. I'm not digging into muscles. I'm just holding this. Oh, wow. That made my arm feel like it relaxed in a hot tub without the warmth. And I felt the relaxation through here. Gonna test my hand. My hand feels a little looser now. I'm still noticing some problems in the first finger, but that's on me. That's my radial nerve. The next thing that I'm going to do, now that we've done that, I'm going to go for the retinaculum here. I'm going to basically do the same thing I did up here, but I'm going to do it with the retinaculum. So the tape over the wrist. So you can see the line of the wrist, just like the line of our elbow. We're just going to intend to bring that close together like that. And I'm just going to hold it. Okay. Now, not pressing on my pulse or anything, or that you may feel it, especially if your heart rate is a little high right now, you may feel it. So what I'm going to do also, so if you want to try this, you can, but holding this in place until you have a breath is not good enough. There's something to try, but I'm going to actually like wiggle my fingers. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to do it slowly. I'm threading my tendons through the slack that I just created. So it's kind of like a tendon floss. And I'm just going to do that. Yeah. So I got kind of like an irritated radial nerve. So my first finger is going to do it. That's fine for me. But I also felt a release. Then I breathe. So I'm going to slide out with respect. Wait a second. Wow. And that actually was more helpful than the positional release for me. I feel like my fingers are moving a little bit better, and I feel some of the achiness that I was having is decreased. So the next one I'll show you, and it might not be easy to do online, but I'll show it to you anyways for the sake of being thorough. So here's our arm. Here's our bones, the radius and the ulna, right? These two bones. I'm going to come up to about here. I'm going to gently squeeze them together, just a little bit. Just a little bit, okay? And then I'm going to slowly make a fist. I'm going to open my hand. When I do this, I feel sort of a ballooning of the interosseous membrane, and I feel the contractions of my muscles. And I'm just going to do real slow, real slow. See how that muscle moves under my hand? I do these a few times, okay? And then I might even wiggle a little bit. And then I'm going to come out. I'm gonna put my arm back down. You may feel circulation loss when you do that because you have your arm up. Usually when I do this to people, they're laying on a table. But I find that that's helpful in making this feel less tense and helping to actually encourage circulation. And it should not feel very uncomfortable or scary when you do it. And again, it's just a little bit of slack in the bone. Like I'll do it on this side. It's just a little bit of bloop. Just a little bit of like that. You can even bring your fist from side to side slowly. Being slower is better than being faster for this stuff. Okay, so I responded to that. I'm going to take that out. And so that's one way to do that. And then if everybody's okay going over just a few minutes, I want to show you one last thing that you can do. And then I'll open the floor for questions. And it's fine if we go over time for questions and answers, but I want to show you this. How does that sound? Okay, so I'm gonna put a glove on because I got braces on my hand. If you later you can try this. So if you have like lotion or cream, so I have some lotion here. And I'm going to, this is for this meaty section of the arm, okay? I'm going to apply the lotion. Okay, so I've applied it for some lubrication. And it may require some more grip strength. So if you don't have it, that's okay. So I've applied it to get an even coat. It doesn't require much, and I prefer cream for this. But I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to push away from my body with a little bit of pressure into the skin. And I'm going to come down like this. This is a fascial maneuver. I may even wiggle my fingers while I do this. Now, it should not feel super rough. It should not feel like trying to stretch like really hard or anything. It's just a little bit of friction. That's all that it is. It's just a tiny amount of friction. And once you reach a spot like here, I've reached a spot that doesn't want to really go. So I'm just gonna wait here, and then maybe my arm will let me through, and it's starting to let me through. So I'm gonna keep going. And then we can push towards us a little bit. And then the other thing that we can do is we can just gently roll it. It helps get nutrients. It helps with blood flow to do this. Okay, so just gonna do it like that. And then I can come in and I can just do some gentle. If you can tolerate it. If you're really hypermobile and you're subluxating, I've only got a few points of hypermobility in my hand, so I can do that. may not be appropriate for you, but I wanted to show it. And then we can come in with our thumb, and this does require a little bit more pressure. So I'm going to put some pressure, and then I'm going to reach, and I got to open my hand. I got to do this, pinky to thumb. 1, 2, like that. And I feel a lot better just doing it like that. Something you can play around with. If you want more specific training, I do offer one-to-one online classes, and I can also teach you how to do it in office if you come to Queen Anne for coaching. And then, of course, if you prefer somebody else do it, I do massage as well. So at this point, are there any questions or anything that I can go over before I give you my end of class speech?
No questions, but my hand does feel better than it has in like months right now.
That's why I do what I do. That's why I decided that I would teach all these freaking classes, because isn't it just empowering to be able to do that for yourself?
Hmm.
I had doctors tell me, oh yeah, it sounds like you have thoracic outlet syndrome. Let's put lidocaine in your scalene muscle. And then if we find what we're going to find, which we will, we'll just surgically remove the muscle.
Ah!
And I was like, I'm a massage therapist. I'm sure we can figure this out. And I don't need surgery. In some cases, people do, but I don't. He was way too knife happy. Any other questions or things that you want me to clarify? Oh, and Heather, did I answer your question about the tingling with the positional release?
Oh yeah, that was mine. And yeah, you did.
Okay, cool. And the other thing I wanted to say about that particular thing too is that sometimes when that happens, it means that there's like a local entrapment somewhere else, or that your nerves are very sensitive or irritated for some reason.
Mhm.
So, like I said earlier, going to a different spot and trying different things would be beneficial. But also, if you're not already getting some massage work done, you might find that either having a partner help you, or have somebody like me help you, but getting some massage work, getting that work done for yourself first, can make doing it easier for you later. It'll give you a leg up. So when I'm like hypersensitive like that too, and like nothing I'm doing for myself is working, then I take it to a provider and get it done.
Cool.
Great. Okay. So my end of the class speech is please use these techniques. I will get this out to you, and it'll be a YouTube link. It'll be unlisted. Please do not share it to people outside of the class. Respect people's consent and privacy. And then if you did enjoy this class and you want to go to others, I think you're all on my mailing list, but I have a mailing list. I'll be saying when things are open for registration. If you also wouldn't mind helping me out to find others like you who could benefit from my work, would you please write about it, your experience today, tag it on social media in our community? That is the best way for people to know about us, especially with social media suppression. And as a small business owner, I really struggle with getting word of mouth. Please do not let me be your best kept secret. Please spill the beans. Please overshare. Get that word out there, because there are people like you and I who really need to know about this, and I am here to give that information. So I really appreciate you all coming. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments, or if you want me to teach a specific kind of class. I'm open to ideas. And again, thank you so much for coming. It was a lot of fun to teach this today, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I will get this all out to you as soon as I can.
Thank you so much. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.